Hello, everyone. I'm the storyteller, and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching now? Get comfortable and relax. The Watcher in the Fog. The fog came in slow, like a thief in the night. It rolled over the jagged cliffs of Harrow's Point, Maine, swallowing the lighthouse beam whole, smothering the town in a wet, gray shroud. The kind of fog that didn't feel natural, the kind that made your skin crawl like it was alive. At first, no one paid much attention. Fog was nothing new in a seaside town. But then, people started disappearing. Old Man Grady was the first. He'd been out on his boat, checking his lobster traps, when the fog rolled in. They found the boat drifting 2 days later, empty. No sign of Grady. Then it was Sarah Hargrove, the high school English teacher. She'd gone for her evening jog along the cliffs and never came back. Her husband reported her missing, but the police found nothing, just the fog, thick and unyielding. And then, as suddenly as they'd vanished, they started coming back. Grady showed up on the docks at dawn, standing motionless, his clothes damp and clinging to his thin frame. Sarah appeared in her classroom, sitting at her desk, staring blankly at the chalkboard. They didn't speak, didn't eat, didn't sleep. Their eyes, oh God, their eyes, glowed faintly in the dark, like embers smoldering in a dead fire. The town was terrified. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some said it was a curse. Others blamed the government. Secret experiments gone wrong. But no one had answers. No one except maybe the Watcher. Ethan Cross pulled into Harrow's Point just after sunset. The town looked like something out of a postcard. Quaint, weathered, and eerily quiet. The kind of place where nothing ever happened. Or so he'd thought. Ethan was a journalist. The kind who chased stories no one else would touch. The kind who didn't believe in curses or ghosts or things that went bump in the night. But Harrow's Point? This place was different. The air felt heavy, charged, like the calm before a storm. And the fog, it was everywhere, clinging to the streets, the buildings, the people. He checked into the only motel in town, the Sea Breeze Inn, and headed straight to the bar. Bars were always good for information. The locals were there, huddled in small groups, their voices low and tense. Ethan ordered a whiskey and struck up a conversation with the bartender, a grizzled man with a face like cracked leather. "Heard about the disappearances," Ethan said, keeping his tone casual. "What's the story?" The bartender's eyes flicked to the door, then back to Ethan. "Ain't no story," he muttered. "Just bad luck." "Bad luck doesn't make people's eyes glow," Ethan pressed. The bartender leaned in close, his breath reeking of stale beer. "You didn't hear it from me, but there's something out there. In the fog. It watches, it waits, and when it's ready, it takes you." Ethan raised an eyebrow. It? The bartender didn't answer. He just wiped down the counter and walked away. The next morning, Ethan started digging. He visited the families of the missing, the ones who'd come back. Grady's wife let him into their small, cluttered home. The old man sat in a rocking chair by the window, staring out at the fog. His eyes glowed faintly, like two pale moons. "He won't talk," Mrs. Grady said, her voice trembling. "He just sits there, like he's waiting for something." Ethan knelt in front of Grady, searching his face for any sign of recognition. "Mr. Grady? Can you hear me?" Grady's head turned slowly, his glowing eyes fixing on Ethan. For a moment, Ethan thought he saw something. A flicker of fear, of desperation. Then Grady's lips parted, and a low, guttural sound escaped his throat. It wasn't a word. It wasn't even human. Ethan stumbled back, his heart pounding. Whatever had taken Grady, it wasn't done with him yet. That night, Ethan dreamed of the fog. It surrounded him, cold and suffocating, pressing against his skin. In the distance, he saw a figure, tall, impossibly tall, with long, spindly limbs and eyes that burned like twin suns. It watched him, unblinking, and in its gaze, Ethan felt a terrible, ancient hunger. He woke in a cold sweat, the sound of the ocean crashing against the cliffs outside his window. The fog was thicker now, creeping under the door, pooling on the floor. Ethan grabbed his recorder and started speaking, his voice shaky but determined. "This is Ethan Cross, reporting from Harrow's Point, Maine. Something is happening here. Something unnatural. The fog. It's not just weather. It's alive. And whatever's in it, it's taking people, changing them. I don't know how to stop it, but I'm going to find out." The next day, Ethan visited the cliffs where Sarah Hargrove had disappeared. The fog was denser here, swirling around his feet as he walked. He found her jogging path, a narrow trail that wound along the edge of the cliffs. And there, in the dirt, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Footprints, but not human. They were too large, too elongated, with claw-like marks at the tips. Ethan followed them, his heart pounding, until they led him to a cave hidden in the rocks. The entrance was dark, the air inside damp and heavy. And from deep within, he heard it, a low, rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat. Ethan hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to get as far away from this place as possible. But he was a journalist. He needed the truth. He stepped inside. The cave was deeper than he expected, the walls slick with moisture. The sound grew louder, more insistent, until it filled his head, drowning out all thought. And then he saw it. The Watcher. It stood at the back of the cave, its massive form hunched under the low ceiling. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Its eyes burned with a cold alien light, and its mouth, a jagged gaping maw, was filled with rows of needle-like teeth. Ethan froze, his breath caught in his throat. The Watcher tilted its head, studying him, and then it spoke. Its voice was a cacophony of sounds, guttural growls, high-pitched shrieks, and something that might have been laughter. "You should not have come," it said, each word dripping with malice. "But now that you're here, you will serve." Ethan turned to run, but the fog was already closing in, wrapping around him like a cocoon. He felt himself being pulled, dragged deeper into the cave, into the Watcher's grasp. And as the darkness swallowed him, he realized the terrible truth. The fog wasn't just a tool, it was a gateway. And the Watcher, it was only the beginning. Back in town, the fog grew thicker, spreading like a disease. More people disappeared, more came back changed. And in the caves beneath the cliffs, the Watcher waited, its glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. It was hungry, and it was coming. The end.